Record. Hi, everyone. This is Courtney, one of your coaches here at the Re-Engagement Hub at Martha O'Brien Center. I'm here with Darius, one of our peer support workers. Hi, Darius. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. How you doing?
I'm doing very well. So we are in part 3 of our Getting the Job workshop series. So today's topic is job retention and career growth. So it may be pretty easy for some people to get a job. The hard part for some people may be staying in a job, whether that's because you quit and hop from job to job, or because you lose your job. So that's what we are focusing on today. Before we get started, I'm going to talk a little bit about the Re-Engagement Hub. So there are 3 main things we do here at the Re-Engagement Hub. One is career coaching. We do that one-on-one with 17 to 24-year-olds who live in Davidson County to help them make plans for success, figure out what your strengths are, set goals, achieve goals, whether that's getting back into school, getting a job, getting a better job. We also have peer support workers, Darius and Will, who are here just to help build community, listen to what you're going through, and be there as another support system. And then we offer workshops and training such as the one we're doing now. So those are the 3 main things we do here in the Re-Engagement Hub. If you're watching this and you are not already enrolled in the Re-Engagement Hub, there will be some kind of link or something, or you can visit our website, reengage@mobc.org, to get your very own career coach. So one of the big things about retaining a job, staying in a job, and growing in that job once you've gotten the job is learning how to meet expectations at work. Darius, have you ever gone into a job and felt like kind of lost, or like you didn't know what to do, you didn't know what was expected of you?
Yeah, actually, my first, like right now, I work at Amazon along with Martha O'Brien, and I felt like my first stint at Amazon when I was in college, I didn't know what to do, or what was expected per se, because that was my first time working in a warehouse, so I didn't know what to expect, and yeah, I was kind of confused on what was I going to be doing, my first day compared to my second day and all of that.
Mm-hmm. That can be a pretty common experience. So there are some simple ways that you can kind of understand your office, your workplace culture, and work etiquette that are going to help you meet the expectations of your supervisor and your company. So there are a lot of different aspects that make up your work and office culture or the company culture. So that includes the environment the company creates for its employees, and that could be things like we have a monthly birthday party for employees, or we offer a flexible schedule, or like what the dress code is. And that can come from your organization's leadership, their values, traditions, beliefs, behaviors, your attitude, and that all of that relates to how your employees relate together and what's expected of your employees. And it could also include the written rules and expectations and the unwritten rules and expectations of a company. So, Darius, have you ever encountered any unwritten rules at work? I can give an example. The last place I worked, there was kind of an unwritten rule that everyone was able to leave early on Fridays, except for certain staff who are there for a strict schedule. That's not something you would know from like reading the handbook, but it's something that you could observe over time. You see everyone leaving really early on Fridays.
Oddly enough, and this was working in retail, I remember one of the unwritten rules, I think would be like, and it's just kind of like crazy because it has to do with like dress code, but they were like, you can only wear black pants and like black shorts, but but no one ever said that you could wear like jeans as well. And as far as like that real charcoal gray type, so it really didn't have to be strictly black. So I mean, but everybody kind of knew. And the good thing about like unwritten rules too is that I feel like sometimes that's like a tradition for some places.
And some unwritten rules could be like, our start time is 9 a.m., but really you need to be here at 8:50. And that's something you may not know unless you ask or unless you like kind of observe everyone's behavior. That could be an unwritten rule.
Right. And I feel the same about Amazon as well, like, because I work there now, and unlike my shift, let's just say, like, if I worked a shift that ended at 12 o'clock in the morning, there's a 5 minute window where you can clock out 5 minutes early, but obviously, they want you to max out your potential there. So you can leave 5 minutes early and not get, a point and get accounted against you. So it's like a free 5 minutes of the day.
Mhm, mhm. So, some simple ways to meet expectations at work, and these are pretty universal, they'll work for most workplaces, are to be present and ready to start at the beginning of your shift, meaning like you're physically there 5 to 10 minutes early, and like at the start time, you're actually starting work. You're not like rolling in and fixing your coffee, and then by the time you've done all that and socialized and like gotten settled and hung up your coat, whatever, it's 9:20 or 9:30 and you've lost like 20 or 30 minutes just getting settled when you could have arrived 5 to 10 minutes early, been ready to go, made a good impression. Another easy way to meet expectations is just get clarification on the dress code in the beginning and stick to it. So you get clarification by asking your supervisor, and they may tell you like, "Oh, the dress code is this," but you'll actually see people are a little more casual, or we wear jeans on Fridays, or whatever. Or it may be like, "We're really strict," or it may be like, "Hey, wear whatever you want, but if you have a meeting, you need to dress like nicely for the meeting or on certain days, and we'll let you know what those days are." Um, and those things are usually in the employee handbook. It's a really good idea if you have an employee handbook to read it. And even after you've been in a job for a while, just go back and read it. All the policies and procedures and expectations are usually laid out in there. And then I just keep those lines of communication open with your supervisor about what they expect from you, especially in the beginning, before you've developed your routine. Just ask questions like, what should my priorities be? What are you expecting of me? And I think your supervisor will be impressed with your initiative in even asking those questions. Darius, do you have any other advice for easy ways to meet expectations at work, especially when you're new at a job?
Um, I agree. I just think communication I know it's um, a cliche saying, but I feel like if you communicate with your supervisor and director, then it's way more easier for you. You
Mhm.
don't have to worry about trying to like wait last minute. If you communicate with them earlier, then things should go well and it should be fine.
And then that can save you from, you think you're doing fine, but then later down the road, you find out that you've been doing A, B, and C wrong when you could have asked in the first place, gotten clarification, and then, been fine.
Correct.
So, some ways of navigating workplace culture, those things we talked about, like the expectations, the rules, the relations, the way your company or your workplace kind of operates, are getting to know your coworkers, like asking your coworkers about their experiences whenever you can, taking opportunities to go to lunch or building relationships with your coworkers, talking to your boss about their expectations, your priorities, asking for feedback along the way. That can be a good way to navigate workplace culture, and then give yourself time to adapt. It can take a while to feel like a new job is a good fit. It takes time to learn, and it can take time to, really understand, how you fit in your workplace, how your job works, things that you're good at, weak spots that you need to strengthen. It can take time, like it can take a few months and sometimes like a year to suss that out, depending on what your job is. Um, and then there's also like it's important to identify whether work culture is healthy or unhealthy. So you may be having a hard time at work just because there are new challenges, and that can be a positive thing to work through. But then you may also be having a hard time at work because of an unhealthy culture, like there's a lot of office gossip or things like that. Darius, how long do you think it takes you to adapt to a new job?
Uh, for me, I'll use like Martha O'Brien as an example. I feel like our staff had like gelled really well, like quickly. One, because I was already familiar with Martha O'Brien from since I was in high school. So I had known Miss Robin already prior to working at the Reengagement Hub. And then, you know, Miss Robin doesn't make bad hires, in my opinion. So I knew working with you and the rest of the staff would be easy. So it only took me like a couple of, for me, in working with you guys, probably took me like a couple of days to like a week, just to like build like comfortability.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I know like when I was working like retail, or if I was working at like Amazon, it was harder for me um to like gel well. And I think a thing that helped us a lot was, when we first started there and before COVID, we would like, I think once a week we would go like to Ugly Mugs, or we would go to Hunter Station and all that. So that was something that helped really well, and it made it a lot easier.
Yeah, I mean, it can take a little while to adapt to a new job and like a new team. So if you feel like you started a job and you are struggling, or maybe you don't like it, or maybe it's not what you thought it's going to be, or you're not sure if you're doing well, give yourself at least a couple of weeks to like, get used to it, adapt. And your job's probably going to change. Things are probably going to change at your company as you go. So just being like able to continue to adapt and give yourself that time and space is really important, to persisting in a job once you've gotten it. So, what would you say makes a healthy workplace culture, Darius? I think some of the things that you mentioned before, like we had camaraderie, we spent time to build relationships. So, that's like a really healthy workplace culture. What would you say would make a workplace or a company culture unhealthy?
Hmm. I think characteristics of an unhealthy workplace culture would be, uh, I would say, like gossip. I feel like gossip never ends up in the right, there is not like a right way for it. That's a characteristic of an unhealthy workplace. Also, probably, I would say like management, like not like management per se, but as far as like time management, if you can't manage your time right, then it's going to be way harder for you. But I know a lot of people like who work at, other jobs that's like, regular jobs, and they feel that sometimes, even though I did say management is one, but now I'm talking about, management, like supervisors and stuff like that. There have been a lot of unhealthy and toxic workplaces because of bad supervisors and bad managers. So I've I've seen that working, part-time jobs before, prior to now. But I think those are some characteristics, and it's just kind of hard for some people to get over the unhealthy side of things, and it just builds a bad workplace environment for everyone else.
Absolutely. Even though this particular workshop is about job retention, there are some workplaces that are just going to be unhealthy or unsafe for you mentally or emotionally. So I don't want anyone to feel like they've failed if they do have to leave because of those circumstances. Like if there are things like, bullying, harassment, toxic management, it may be okay to leave those situations if you're able to find another job. Let's talk a little bit about stress management, because that can get in the way of your job retention if you're feeling like you are overwhelmed, you can't do it, you're not supported. And a lot of times I feel like we think we have to suffer in silence when we're having stress, and that makes it harder to stay in a job versus just like, quitting or walking off a shift or something like that. It's not going to look good for your resume. It's not going to, translate well in an interview. But if we were managing the stress along the way, it'd be a little easier to retain that job and make better decisions on the shift. So that kind of answers that question. Darius, what does stress management do you think has to do with job retention and growing your career, like the ability to manage your stress appropriately?
I think that's a real vital part of job retention, is because there's going to be days at your job where you're just like, I don't feel it. you just feel like you can't do it. And then, you add things as far as like personal stress, and then you got professional stress. All that is like a stress cocktail into one, and that can end up blowing up, unfortunately for a lot of people. So I think it's really important, just because there's not a lot of, you're not gonna have, 100 great days, and one of those days are gonna be, as great as the other. One of those days are gonna be stressful, and it's just how you manage that stress. I think a good way of managing that stress too is to think about it long term, because like how you said, with job retention and stress, some people just walk out.
Mhm.
And the reason why I think it's a good tactic to sit and think about it first, because if you think about it, doing it the right way and putting in the 2 weeks notice, then what I would think is that, okay, you had a couple of days to think about it. If you still feel the exact same, then maybe putting in your notice is the best thing. Um, so I feel like that's a great way of stress. Is a great way of, I would say, handling stress.
Yeah, definitely managing your stress along the way on a day-to-day basis can help, it not lead to a big blow up or a walk off or getting into like an argument or conflict with a coworker or a supervisor that leads to you getting fired. It is really important to manage your stress on a day-to-day basis, and that's just also part of self-care and overall wellness to manage your stress. So I have a quick little video about stress tactics, about workplace stress, and a solution.
Hi, Kate here. Welcome to Wellcast. If you've been here before, welcome back. If it's your first time, check out our introductory video. Long story short, it's 100 wellness exercises in 100 days. You in? Stress isn't a decision, but how you deal with it certainly is. Today, we're going to show you how you can be a master of a stressful situation at work with one effective exercise. According to a poll conducted by CareerBuilder, 50% of workers reported that they feel a great deal of stress on the job. But what causes workplace stress? Are you getting stuck with too much work piling up on your desk? Do you need to have it all done in 5 minutes? Maybe you're getting criticized constantly and never praised. It also happens when your job's too easy and you're just simply not challenged or inspired. Stress comes from all sides. A stressful work environment can have a significant impact on your health. The American Heart Association found that people who reported experiencing job-related stress had blood pressure that tested 10% higher than those who did not experience job stress. The study also found that people who were stressed maintained their high blood pressure even after they got home. While those non-stress participants, their blood pressure dropped right when they left the office. The British Medical Journal did a 15-year study on workplace stress, and they found that people who reported being overworked and unable to meet deadlines were twice as likely to get type 2 diabetes than those who felt they were able to meet the deadlines. So, whether you're an AP, HR, or upper management, today's Wellcast is for you. There's no way to avoid stress, but you have a choice to react in a healthy way. Stress is a circumstance, but you are a force. There are really only 3 possible reactions to a bad situation: removing yourself from the situation, changing the situation, or accepting the situation. Open your Wellcast journal to a blank page and make 3 columns. Label them at the top: remove, change, and accept. Now, think of the 5 most stressful situations at your current workplace. These might include your salary, your boss, your coworkers, or your output. Start by placing these stressors into each category. Start with a larger one, like your salary. You do have the decision to A, remove yourself from your current workplace and find a better job, B, change your situation by asking for a raise, or C, accept the situation that you're in. Once you've divided these stressors, write out 5 short action plans for each situation. For example, if you've chosen to change an unpleasant situation with your coworker, map out exactly how you're going to do that. Move your desk, or if it's really bad, maybe you could talk to your supervisor. Remember, acceptance isn't necessarily avoidance. Sometimes dealing with stress is as simple as learning how to put your frustrations into perspective. Congratulations, You've just identified your top 5 stressors. And better yet, you know what you're going to do to make a difference. That is a huge accomplishment because you've transformed negative elements in your life into opportunities to re-engage and grow. Let's recap. You can't completely avoid workplace stress, but you can deal with it in a more productive way. Excess stress can lead to higher blood pressure and even diabetes. So, to combat stress at your job, use your Wellcast journal to divide those stressors into 3 very specific categories: remove, accept, and change. Then figure out concrete plans how to react to these stressors healthfully. Tweet us at WatchWellcast.
And that was just a quick strategy for dealing with stress, giving you some options that you can leave a situation, change a situation, or adapt to a situation. So I think those are just a really good response. And also just the act of figuring out, like writing down what your stressors are, can help you understand, like, is the situation toxic, or is it just like a situation that I need to get used to, or a situation that I can talk to my supervisor or I can change my attitude about. Let's talk about normal stress. Like, there's going to be day-to-day stress versus what's excessive, and what can cause burnout. Darius, how would you define burnout?
My way of thinking of what burnout is I kind of think of like everything as far as like in the sports way. So maybe this helps someone who likes sports. We used to do something that's called a burnout rep, which is basically you put no weight on the bar, but you keep going until, just until your arms get burnt out. And that kind of put me in the same mindset as if, how the situation is at a workplace is maybe that, you've done it for a while and you're just not getting the same fulfillment out of it. So what it is that you kind of get tired of it. And, you feel like, is there anything else I can contribute to the team? And you're questioning that. So that's kind of what I believe that the burnout is.
That's exactly what I would say. So normal things to be stressed about, like on a day-to-day or at your job, may be like you are worried about meeting a deadline, or you're worried about a task that you have to do, or maybe feeling nervous about a presentation if you're nervous about public speaking. So these can have adverse effects. Like, it can be hard to deal with stress, but these are kind of like it's a one-off, or it's not occurring every day, or you're like busy at work sometimes, but then sometimes they're slower, so you can take a break and breathe and plan. That's all normal stress. So like what Darius is describing, the excessive stress, the burnout, the kind of going until you can't go anymore, that lasts day to day, that affects your overall attitude and your overall ability to work. Can be like feeling buried under your workload, feeling completely unable to start a project or a task because you're so overwhelmed with everything you have to do, feeling like you can't come to your supervisor about problems because they won't be helpful. And that can lead to an overall feeling of disengagement or a lack of motivation. So it may feel like you're just being lazy when really you're just totally burnt out. Or it may feel like you lack motivation, but really you may just not even know where to start. Or that you're not able to meet deadlines, but maybe the expectation from your supervisor isn't realistic for you. Like maybe it's 2 people's workloads, maybe someone quit and you're having to cover all of their tasks as well as yours. Those can all lead to burnout, which can lead to the things that we talked about, like the walking out, the quitting, the having the blow up at work. So when those excessive stressors are coming, like they're happening, that's the time I would definitely, if you can, go to your supervisor. If your work has a human resources department, you may talk to them. If your work has an employee assistance program that offers things like counseling, that could be a great resource to help you figure out like what's actually causing the stress and help you find strategies to deal with the stress. And if that's a situation that can change, or if it's a situation that you need to remove yourself from because it's ultimately not going to be healthy for you physically or mentally or emotionally to stay in that excessively stressful workplace that's burning you out. So moving on from stress, another big part of staying in a job is understanding communication styles. And that can be like you're interacting with your supervisor, you're interacting with coworkers, you may be interacting with customers or clients at your job. So understanding communication styles can be a big part of being able to communicate effectively with your team, people inside your organization, your workplace, and people outside your organization or workplace. So there are four main styles. The first we'll cover is aggressive communication. So Darius, what do you think it means for someone to be like aggressively communicating?
In my opinion, I think like just looking at the word and not looking at, I guess, like the description. If I had to guess, I would say aggressive communication would be someone who is kind of like cold about the person that they're talking about. Like, not necessarily that they don't care for their feelings, but kind of like they do it through like a tough love kind of way, and that includes things like yelling and, you know, snarky comments and things like that. So and maybe their demeanor changes while they're talking to them as well. That's kind of what I got from it.
Definitely, definitely. Aggressive communication can be really like emotional. It may be criticizing others, attacking others. You don't let other people voice their opinions. You might insult people, put them down, intimidate people. So the only time that this kind of communication style is really appropriate in the workplace would be like if there's an unsafe situation where you just have to kind of like tell someone no, or maybe ask someone to leave if they're being dangerous or aggressive, like a customer in a store. You may just have to like say no, keep yourself and others safe, and understand like where that aggressiveness is coming from. Something you might come across more frequently in the workplace might be passive communication, like a lack of eye contact, being really apologetic even when you haven't done anything wrong, not being able to stand up for yourself, avoiding sharing your thoughts and feelings. Passive aggressive communication, we've all heard this word, but like what does it actually mean? Darius, what would you think would be behaviors that would come off as passive aggressive?
The big word that comes to my mind is, well, it's not a word, it's more like a phrase. It's like, I don't care. That's kind of like the demeanor and kind of like um, the the body language I think gets put off whenever we think of passive aggressive. We think of someone who just like, okay, well, yeah, it's kind of like the first thing of, okay, well, I don't care, do it anyways, or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so like saying you'll do something when you won't, or saying you won't do something when you're actually going to do it, being sarcastic. This can be a really damaging way of talking to people and communicating in the workplace, because you're not having an open dialogue. You're not really voicing your opinion. You're kind of cutting others down. And basically, you're not going to be able to live up to whatever expectations you're setting, because you're saying you do things you want, you're complaining, you don't have a good attitude when you're communicating that way. And then the last style, this is like kind of the ideal communication style, especially for the workplace, assertive communication. So like being able to set clear boundaries, like saying no, for example. Say your plate is full, there's no way that you're going to be able to meet all your deadlines if your supervisor tries to add one more thing. So being able to like set that boundary and say, no, I'm not going to be able to complete my work if you add another thing to my plate. Voicing your needs, thoughts, and opinions, listening, having empathy for others, understanding others' needs. These are all really handy in the workplace and good communication tools to have in your belt. Darius, have you ever had anyone that really exemplifies assertive communication? I feel like I've had some supervisors who have really exemplified the assertive communication, but then I've also had some that have really exemplified passive aggressive communication. And it's always been more effective when supervisors are being clear, voicing their needs, listening, having empathy, and then like not kind of going behind your back and saying they're going to do something when they're not, or saying something different behind your back than they said to your face. What do you think about that, Darius?
I think that's the ideal situation. Just because you have someone who genuinely cares about what's going on in your life. If you can't, make a certain deadline in time because of, a certain because of a certain situation that popped up, or maybe because you can't make a certain commitment because of what happens in life, unfortunately. So I think that's the great thing about assertive, is that it's kind of the clear cut epitome example of what communication is supposed to be about.
Definitely. And then the last thing we'll talk about is like conflict resolution at work, because conflict can arise. You're working with people, customers, supervisors who all have different backgrounds, communication styles, expectations. So conflict may arise in the workplace. So we'll talk about kind of the causes of conflict, and your ability to resolve conflict can also be an important part of being able to, again, retain your job, because you're not, getting into fights with coworkers, you're not yelling at your supervisor, arguing with your supervisor, being able to effectively communicate, that kind of thing. So some of the biggest causes of work conflict are communication, that people have different communication styles. People have different values. So like one person may value innovation, they want to try new things all the time, and another might value consistency and wanting to do things the same way every time. And neither of those people are wrong, but they have different values, and it could lead them to butt heads if they don't understand, where the other is coming from. People have different personalities and background can lead to conflict if they don't know how to work together. Performance can also be a cause of work conflict with your supervisor. For example, like if you didn't understand that your supervisor had a certain goal or a certain expectation and you didn't meet it, that can cause conflict for your supervisor because you didn't meet their expectation. But it can also cause you to feel upset if you feel like you didn't understand or they didn't make clear their expectation in the first place. Darius, can you think of any more causes of conflict, or does that kind of cover a lot of them?
I think you covered a lot of them. So I can't right now. I'm trying to think of some, but I really can't think of that many. But I mean, I guess, yeah, I can't think of any right now.
So a lot of conflicts stem from those few reasons.
Correct.
So when you are having a conflict with someone, if that person is your coworker, your supervisor, or even a customer, kind of the first step in resolving that conflict can be talking with the other person. So say you have a coworker who comes in 15 minutes late every day, and then that affects your work. It can be to talk with the other person and focus on their behavior. So say, Darius, you're coming in 15 minutes late every day and it's affecting my work somehow. If I were going to bring that to you, I would focus on, hey, Darius, when you come in 15 minutes late, it puts me behind in my work. And I wouldn't come to you saying like, Darius, you're too lazy to come to work, and make like a value judgment about you. Like, you're too lazy to get here on time. You're disorganized, blah, blah, blah. Like, that's commenting on you and your personality, not on the actual behavior and events that are coming from your lateness. And then my role would be to listen carefully, because maybe, Darius, you have a reason that you have been late, like you have a hard time starting your car every day, or you have to, take care of a sick relative or something that I don't know anything about that's putting you behind getting to work on time every day. So like I need to listen and practice empathy if that's the case. And then we can work together to kind of identify points that we agree on, and then the points that we disagree on, so we can find like where this conflict is actually coming from. and then prioritize the actual areas of conflict. So in this case, the conflict would be you're coming in late and that's affecting me, but we can figure out like, what is it about you being late that is affecting my work? And then making a plan. So maybe the plan isn't like Darius needs to get here on time every day. Maybe the plan is Darius can take on this extra task whenever he gets into work, and that'll solve the conflict, and then follow through on that plan. So how would you feel if someone came to you with like these kind of steps to resolve a conflict?
I think that these steps are pretty much easy to follow and very straightforward. And I feel like it's just easy because it's simple, and that's how you resolve conflicts. Is that you don't need to make resolving conflicts this whole complicated thing. It's just, hey, let's communicate, let's try to solve the problem, and let's try to get a plan together to where we can follow through on some of our goals. So I feel like this is a great step system in order to resolve conflict, because you can also, the good thing is that you can repeat steps all over again, and you don't have to keep on, trying to redo the same things over again. If you have an action plan and it works, then just keep doing it.
Mm-hmm. So these are a lot better and a lot more assertive than some other ways that you might handle conflict. Like, for example, if I were to address this in a passive aggressive way, like say Darius comes in 15 minutes late and it bothers me, and I'm like, oh, good morning, Mr. Punctuality, like a sarcastic comment. That's not going to feel good to Darius, but it's also not going to fix whatever my issue is. So like, it doesn't really communicate the problem. It's just going to let him know that I'm mad, but it doesn't offer any solutions,
Correct.
You could also like not know that that was bothering me, that you were coming in 15 minutes late. Like, you have no idea until I bring it up. So you've got to approach everything with empathy, kind of assume the best in people, and focus on the actual behavior, the actual conflict, and the impact it's having, versus like a value judgment about the other person, your supervisor, or even, you can use these steps with a customer. Say if you were working in a restaurant, you got an order wrong, and they were mad and they were accusing you of stuff, like the customer was mad, you could listen, empathize, and then identify some solutions, rather than being like, oh, well, then I guess I'm just not going to serve you. That doesn't really solve the conflict, doesn't look good for you, and retaining your job. So there are some times that conflict is kind of above and beyond what you really need to be handling as an employee, and it may be time to involve HR, human resources, or a supervisor. So in cases where there are bullying or harassment, in cases where there's discrimination, like due to race, gender, sexual orientation, religion, nationality, any identity thing like that. When there's a safety issue, like you're not being provided with the proper safety equipment at work, or if you are not like following protocols at work. And sometimes the issues just aren't going to get resolved, and there may be times that you need to walk away to preserve your mental and physical health and safety. So I do want to make that point, that some workplaces have cultures that just are not physically or mentally safe, and it's okay to leave those spaces. And then just one last point, staying motivated at work. Once you've been in a job for a while, it can be kind of common to like, you're excited at the beginning, but then you kind of get into a routine and you kind of fall off. You can lose motivation, things can get boring. So just some ways of staying motivated at work, and like where motivation comes from. So here's a quick video.
Whether you're trying to lose 20 pounds, get that promotion at work, or quit smoking, sticking to your goal isn't an easy task. After all, 45% of people drop their New Year's resolutions after a month. So why is it so difficult to keep motivated? And how can science help us achieve what we're after? In one MIT study, students were given 2 types of tasks. In the first, they had to hit 2 keys on a keyboard as many times as possible in 4 minutes, and those that did it the fastest would receive money. For some, the reward was $300, while for others, only $30. Interestingly, performance was 95% greater in the high $300 group, highlighting how money can be a motivator. But in the second task, the same students were asked to solve a more complex math problem, and this time, those offered the high reward performed 32% slower than the small reward group. This is known as the distraction effect. When we're given a task that requires problem solving, economic or emotional pressure can cause the focus to shift to the motivator, ultimately dividing your attention and reducing performance. When we look inside the brains of individuals, fMRI scans reveal that people who complete a challenge for fun and people who do it for a reward show similar activity throughout the brain. But interestingly, if those offered a reward the first time are asked to participate again for no reward, scans show a decrease in activity in the anterior striatum and prefrontal areas, parts of the brain linked to self-motivation. It seems that rewards may cancel out our natural sense of play. So how does this apply to you? Well, it turns out that play is the strongest motivator for sustained behavioral changes. It makes sense that we stick with enjoyable activities, but considering 67% of gym memberships go unused, it seems most of us are picking the wrong activities to achieve our goals. You might burn the most calories on a treadmill, but not if you stop going after 2 weeks. Pick something you actually like doing. Your goal itself also matters. A study investigating reasons for exercise found that those focused on weight loss spent 32% less time exercising than those who said they want to feel better in day-to-day life. And while it's always good to have a positive attitude, optimism may not always be the best strategy. In a study of 210 females trying to quit smoking, participants who only imagined major success with few obstacles were less likely to reduce cigarette consumption. Positive thoughts can often trick your brain into thinking you've already achieved the goal, giving you a sense of reward and reducing motivation. But this doesn't mean negative thoughts are good. Imagining a goal coming true and then thinking through the obstacles that stand in your way is the best mixed approach. This is known as mental contrasting. Finally, try and avoid the what the hell effect. This behavior was first addressed when researchers gave dieters varying sizes of milkshakes, from small to large, and then offered them ice cream afterwards. It turns out those who had large milkshakes also ended up eating more ice cream because, what the hell, I've already ruined my diet, I might as well go all out. Anticipating that you will have some bumps along the road to success, whether it be a fitness goal, quitting smoking, or work aspirations, will bring you closer to making your goals a reality. Want some tips for motivation with short-term goals, like that assignment that's due tomorrow?
So like this video was talking about staying motivated at work can be hard, but having a goal and being able to imagine what the goal is and see kind of the end result is a good way of staying motivated. Darius, I know you've made a video about SMART goals in the past. How would you define what makes a SMART goal? Darius, can you hear me?
Oh, I'm sorry, Courtney. My bad. I don't even remember muting. I'm sorry about that.
Oh.
I don't even remember muting it. I think I had the cat in here. So I'm sorry about that. But I think with goals, I said first off, I love ASAP Science. So that was a great video. I love the content, but I'm doing my goal setting video. I'm doing that again this week, except this time I'm gonna break it up into 4 parts. So as far as the SMART goals, I remember that it was we learned about them in our youth leadership team meeting, and I think I'm glad you put them out there. I couldn't remember what the S was, but SMART goals really were for how you achieve those goals and how it makes it easier to stay motivated and to achieve them. So I guess since you have the slide, I'll let you go over it.
Right. So a SMART goal, like you could set a goal like, I want to be a better person. I want to be rich. I want to be a movie star. Those are all great goals, but they are not SMART goals. So to be a SMART goal, a goal needs to be specific. So you should be able to name the goal, name the results you want to see. A goal needs to be measurable. So you should have criteria that helps you measure your progress. A goal needs to be achievable. So it should be realistic for where you are right now. And a goal needs to be relevant. So the activities that you're doing should be relevant to your goal. And a goal should be time bound. So setting a deadline to help you stay on track with your goal. Not to say that you can't have big goals that you don't necessarily know how you're going to achieve them, but they can be supported by smaller goals that you can kind of meet along the way. So a specific goal that I could set would be, I want to get into Vanderbilt for a master's in counseling by fall 2020. So it's specific. I've named what the goal is. I have my criteria. So my criteria is getting into Vanderbilt. Time bound, I have fall 2020 as my time. Relevant, the activities that I'm doing would be like studying, applying to school, talking to other counselors, activities that support my goals. So like gardening every day would be a good activity, but it wouldn't be relevant to my goal of going to Vanderbilt for a master's in counseling by fall 2020. So Darius, what if you were going to set a SMART goal that kind of meets these criteria, what would that be?
That's a great question. I would say, I guess I probably try to use, I guess, one of my goals. And I would say one of my goals is to learn how to, like, save my money and manage it better. So I guess a way, it is specific because it's financial related. You can keep track of it because it's dealing with numbers. That's the measurable part of it. It is achievable because anyone can save, but also you have to be disciplined enough too. So that's the part of achievable that some people forget, is that you have to stay, committed and all this stuff to your goals. The activities I'm doing that's relevant to it is obviously everyone knows I love shoes, so I'm not spending money on shoes no more, or at least I'm taking a break from doing so. And time bound, I guess it's good because it puts us on a pay, like we have a paid period. So that's kind of the time place that kind of helps me, is that I know how to budget my money better because of how we have our time. I mean, how we have our pay periods broken out, broken down. So that was one of the examples I have to help.
So you're meeting all of those like requirements to make it a SMART goal: specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. So how this kind of fits into job retention, like motivation and staying on top of things, being able to meet deadlines, get all your tasks done, not to get lazy. That is all part of staying in your job and advancing at your job. So a good way to do that is to kind of break it down into goals. Like, what results do I actually want to see from this job, aside from just getting a paycheck or like achieving a certain title? What's going to help you stay engaged and motivated in your job. So that completes our workshop today. If you'd like to connect with the Reengagement Hub, our socials are on the screen. You can visit reengage@mobc.org if you would like your own career coach to help you meet your goals, whether that is retaining your job, getting back in school, or any other personal goals that you are trying to reach. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you soon. Bye, Darius. Thank you so much.
All right, no problem, Courtney. I'll see you on the next one. Thank you so much for having your workshops available.
See you on the next one. Thank you so much. Goodbye.
See ya.